Was effective in his spot start that he went 5 innings, as you mentioned. Who do you think is going to be the most effective, I guess, when they come back into this rotation?
So, I mean, I think you start with Bailey. I mean, he's got the track record, and DeSclafani pitched really well last year and had probably less of a severe injury. I mean, Bailey's coming off a big-time surgery, whereas DeSclafani, an oblique, I mean, that's an injury, but it's not an arm injury. So you hope that he'll come back and be just as effective as he was last year, plus one more year of experience under his belt. So, I mean, I would say it's one of those two guys. Lamb's, I think, still a wild card for me. I don't really know exactly what they're going to expect from him. He's been out for a while now with his back surgery, so it's take him a while to kind of get back into form. I mean, he did have an amazing year at AAA last year, but if I had to put my money on one guy to say that's the guy who's going to have the best numbers at the end of the year, I'd probably put it on DeSclafani.
What about Homer? He just got back from Arizona. What are you hearing about him as far as his outlook?
Yeah, just hearing from Brian Price in the reports, he's thrown as hard as he ever threw, and his breaking stuff was working really well. I think if I had to pick one, I'd say Bailey. I see Lamb as with their need for a left-hander in the bullpen that he could end up in there, or he's more of a four-starter type. If Bailey's at the top of his game, the guy's thrown 2 no-hitters, so he can be a top-of-the-rotation guy. And DeSclafani was kind of projecting to that role. So, I think that they're in a good spot with those guys, and then just the added depth with maybe Lamb goes in the rotation and one of those other guys comes out. But I think with them only having one left-hander in the bullpen now, I think that he's a guy to look at pretty quickly to be in the bullpen if obviously the rotation's too crowded.
John, let's stay with the bullpen. There's 2 trains of thought when it comes to having a closer. There's the old school way of having kind of the committee. We talked about the 90 Reds team that had a lot of guys that filled that closer role. And then there's the train of thought that came after Dennis Eckersley kind of became the man in Oakland, and there was a true closer, 9th inning, dedicated role. Do you think Hoover is the guy for this job?
Well, he, on this staff, he came into the year with the best qualifications. But I think if you're going to have a closer, the one guy, I think he has to be more accomplished than J.J. Hoover. He has to have closed at the big league level with some success. Hoover had success, but it was in a setup role. And I remember saying from the beginning, we'll see how he reacts after he blows a save. And he hasn't reacted well.
No, not at all.
And he's had a very rough go of it. Brian Price has been very frank about the fact that he wants him to close, but you have to have some performance. The other thing you look at it, they just really don't have any alternative. It's not. I think they might look at Blake Wood, who led the International League in saves last year. He throws hard, but they don't have anyone else on the staff. I thought from the beginning that they should have tried to bring in an established closer, a bargain basement type guy. Maybe the guy wasn't out there, but I think that would have taken the pressure off of J.J. Hoover. He would have started the year as the 8th inning guy, and if he'd done well, then maybe you move him in. So it's a tough – but we saw yesterday that, Hoover didn't pitch, and they sent out Jumbo Diaz, and they still had problems. So it's just not Hoover. The whole
bullpen
as a whole, other than Cleve Cotham, everyone struggled at times. So they have to get it straightened out. I mean, I'm sure they're very happy to be 8-7, but they're not. It's not going to continue with this bullpen.
Sadna, speaking for the fans out there, how loud are your groans when you see these guys warming up in a bullpen?
Yeah, well, hey, Cotham, like you said, awesome. I mean, the guy has given up 0 runs, things like that. It's when you get to Hoover, we're hoping to be up by 3 runs because I like Hoover as an 8th inning guy because he's going to give up 2 runs. You still have that 9th inning to get a run back.
Still got that,
and the walk-off, and that's what we're doing right now. That's what we're doing right now. And as a fan, that's exciting to see. But, to John's point, there's no way he is the basement bargain guy. So, where does he go from here? I don't know. I don't. Maybe he doesn't finish his career with the Reds. I don't know.
Brian Price said he wanted to kind of sleep on this closer decision. Do you think he's gotten enough Z's at this point, Mike?
I think John reported that he slept on it really quickly and came back with an answer, and it was Hoover's out. I
think he slept on it. He made his decision. And before the game yesterday, he hadn't told Hoover yet. So they always have to tell the guy first. And they told him, you may pitch in the 9th, but you may pitch in the 7th and 8th. And like I said, someone has to emerge. It's not like you just take Hoover out and you figure out who's going to go in there. They don't have that option. So it's going to be a work in progress for a while. And it's not like a lot of other teams would bring up a guy, a hard thrower from Double-A or something. The Reds tend not to do that, but I think they have to look that way right now. They have to look at their good arms in the system and say, can one of these guys come up and help us now? I think it tempers everything that they don't think they're going to contend. So they don't make, like they said they wouldn't use Robert Stevenson as a reliever. I think if this team, they thought they were going to contend, they might consider doing that.
Be a little bit more open-minded with some of their decisions.
I think you kind of play for now, and now the way they're set up, they're in the rebuild, retool mode or whatever, so they're playing more for the future. But I think they have to look at the other arms, because it's just really hard for the team and the fans and everybody if that bullpen is this as bad as it's been so far.
Yeah, you can't play for the walk-off every day. It's just not going to happen. I wonder too, like. If it weren't for the fact that Finnegan was being so successful in the starter's role, would he be someone they would be considering to be a closer? But I mean, at this point, you can't take him out of the rotation.
He's more valuable as a starter, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody is.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like it's kind of like renovating your house and living in it at the same time, I guess, is what the Reds are trying to do. Trying to build for the future, but at the same time, I guess, also trying to compete. Satin, yesterday, Tucker Barnhart continues to kind of etch out his role. Last year, he played quite a bit with Devin Mazzaracco on the shelf with that hip injury. Devin still hasn't really gotten it together, I guess, as far as at the plate. You got to love what he's doing right now.
It's exciting. I mean, the guy's got a rocket arm as well. I mean, his defense, I like it over Mazzaracco's. I mean, I think everyone would take that. But the bat has been the question. And this year, he's lighting it up. I mean, that average, look at that. He's huge slugging percentage. I mean, you got to love his energy, too, that he brings. And on the defense first. And the fact that he's getting these clutch hits is just awesome to see.
When you saw him come up to the plate in the ninth inning, did you think he was going to be able to get past that five-man infield?
I personally wasn't watching. I was in a meeting. But I will say this. Barnhart really reminds me of Ryan Hannigan. I mean, he's not flashy, but he's great defense, great working with pitching staff, and if he can hit like Hannigan hit, around 280 or so, and
that's a lot to ask out of a backup catcher.
That is, I mean,
he'd be starting if he could hit 280.
Exactly, but look what he's doing right now, and he actually had a pretty solid season last year. I think he ended up hitting like 250 or so. I don't know if you remember, John, but he was pretty solid offensively.
Yeah, I think the thing with Hannigan was he was more of an on-base guy. He was a guy that walked more than he struck out, which is very rare. Barnhart, pitchers always like to throw to him, which is similar to Hannigan. Very good catch and throw guy. He made the play yesterday where the ball comes off the backstop, and that really saved the game. I think the game would have gotten away from him if that run had scored. So, yeah, he's a very good backup catcher, but Mazzaracco's bat, if it's going like it should, is a middle of the order hitter. So, and the other thing, Brian Price said that he thought that the game that Mazzaracco caught for Stevenson was the best game anyone's caught this year, to direct that kid through against the Rockies lineup and everything. So, I think it's a good situation. Barnhart's a really good backup, but they need Mazzaracco to get going.
Just want to welcome everyone back. This is the Fifth Mascot Show, of course, where we talk all things Reds. Joined by Mr. Satin, voice of the superfan here in Cincinnati. To my right.
Hello, hello, hello.
I'm Keenan Singleton. To my far left is Mike Cannon, WCPO.com editor-in-chief.
Thanks, Keenan. Welcome, everyone.
And John Fay, who's been covering the Reds for a couple of years now. I don't want to say a long time because he'll get at me a little bit. Of course, we're on iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. Of course, live on Facebook, live.com right now. Let's move on right now to Facebook. We got some Facebook questions, Mike?
Yeah, we have a question from Beth. She wants to know why the Reds brought in so many young players this year.
They honestly haven't. If you look at it, the starting lineup, the only young guy in it is Billy Hamilton and Suarez.
Duvall, maybe.
Yeah, Duvall's 26 years old, I think. So they're not extremely young. The pitching staff isn't extremely young either, because they brought in, the other night when they failed, and the game got away from him. It was Ross Ollendorf, Jumbo Diaz, and then you had Simon starting the next day. Those guys, 32, 34, and 34. So I would rather see him bring up some young guys and fail with them. I think Robert Stevenson should be up here and pitching until the other guys come up. But there's all kinds of considerations about that. But I think it's a little bit of a misnomer. If you want to go see the young, exciting players, go to Louisville. That's where they are right now.
Well, Beth, thank you for saying that people that are in their mid-30s are young. We appreciate it.
Exactly. Thank you.
Sadden, I mean, what do you think about her question? Thank you for the question, by the way, Beth.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, I think it's not so much of young, but it's that inexperience maybe that we look at, that what's happening with who's this guy because of experience not being here. But I think it's a pretty good blend. I mean, the fact that we didn't trade away our right fielder, the fact that we kept some older guys around with some of the youth come in. I think it's a pretty good blend right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's probably more you don't know these names as opposed to these guys being young. Let's move on now. You mentioned Robert Stevenson getting sent back down to Louisville. It's the second time getting sent down to the farm. He's looked impressive that first game. He had to tough it out that second game. He was the first starter to go 7 innings for this ball club this year. You said you would handle him in a little bit different way than the Reds are handling him right now, though.
Well, the whole thing has to do with service time and whether they control him for 6 years. And he's 8 days away from them controlling for 6 years in the minors. So at the very least, he's going to get 5 this time if Alfredo Simon can't start. They would bring him up for that. But, I think just from an interest standpoint and everything else, I think people would much rather see Robert Stevenson start than Alfredo Simon. You see what Simon can do, and he was very effective 2 years ago for the Reds, but he's not going to be here next year. He's a temporary fill. And they decided to do that and kind of kick the can down the road a bit with Stevenson and Cody Reed. I see why they're doing it. But from a fan standpoint, I just think you have more interest in the young guys to go out there. And Stevenson was very impressive. It was the Colorado Rockies lineup they went up and they beat the Cubs 2 of 3, and just a really good lineup, a lot of good left-handed hitters, and he worked his way through it very well. The one run he gave up came on a broken bat single, so it was a really impressive. And I always look at guys, he's been up there twice under a lot of pressure, and his minor league numbers haven't been overwhelming, particularly at AAA. But when you come up and that much pressure's on you in a big league start in the big league park and all that, and you do well, that tells me a lot about the guy's character and whether he's ready. So far so good with him.
Mike, you agree?
Yeah, I agree completely. And I get what they're doing and why they're doing it, but it's just hard to stomach as a fan when you're like, watching the Dan Straley's of the world and Tim Melvilles of the world. And
you hate
Alfredo
the business
Simon.
side of it getting involved.
Exactly. And then you're like, wait a second, this is the single best start any Red starting pitcher has had all year, and now he's going back down to the minors. Like, it's just hard to wrap your head around and your heart around.
As fans, do you get that the team has to make these kind of small sacrifices for a big game? Because you don't want to see what happened with Mike Leake, where you don't get him for that extra year because you accelerate his clock.
Yeah, I mean, it's all just learning. It's part of the game now, right? And the whole thing, which stinks, is you want to see him come up and make that next outing. But I feel like you look at what happened with Chris Bryant, and that worked out pretty well. So I think as a fan, you see what other teams are doing, and you have to adapt to that, and it starts to make sense, even though it sucks.
Let's move on now to Eugenio Suarez. Love saying the name. Sometimes can't say it totally clearly. Offensively, he's been solid. Defensively, that was always his question mark. Looks like 5 errors in 14 games thus far this year. He's trying to stick at third base, which obviously is a tough position to handle. It's called the hot corner for a reason. But he did make that nice heads-up play on Dustin Garneau, being able to get the Reds out on that appeal at third base. John, does he have the glove to stick at third base?
I think he does. The jury's still out, but
it's early, right?
Yeah. And with him, you're going to give him a good trial. He can always move back to shortstop. Zach Cozart, if he continues to play the way he is, he's going to price himself out of here. I think he's going to be out of here anyway because they only control him for one more year. He's 30 years old. So he could move back there. He could play second base. His bat's going to keep him in the lineup. I mean, he could be left field down the line. But, yeah, I think this year – He has to be. And there was a question coming in. He'd struggled with his throws some last year. But again, he's one of those guys they're going to have to live with and see what he can do this year. And he's worked very hard at it. And guys go through streaks where they're going to make errors. But I think overall he's looked pretty good there.
Can you live with his bat over his glove right now, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is a rebuilding team. You look at a guy who has really never played third base until this year in spring training, and you're sticking him at a new position. He's going to make some errors. I mean, you have to accept that, and that's sort of the price you're paying when you're running out a young team. And I will also say this: while he may be the biggest culprit, this team has stunk on defense so far this season. I mean, they've been pretty bad. Phillips has made several errors. There have been a lot of times when they should have turned double plays and they haven't. And so you start to stack that up against the performance of the starting rotation and the bullpen. You start to wonder, why did it take until this week and Stevenson throws 7 innings in a game and Iglesias was pretty close yesterday? Why is it taking that long to get that far into the season before we get to that point? It's because we're giving them extra outs. That's more pitches. That's racking up the pitch counts, putting more runners on base, more high-stress innings. So it's not just a Suarez problem. It's the entire team is really struggled on defense.
Mike, let's stay with you here. Let's move on to tonight's game. Brandon Finnegan, who looked phenomenal against the Cubs in that opener of the series in Wrigley Field, went nearly 7 innings, allowing 1 hit. He's on the mound tonight against the reigning NL Cy Young winner, Jake Arrieta. Mm-hmm. What do you like out of this guy? What do you think we're going to see tonight, I guess, starting in this 4-game set?
Well, he's been very, very aggressive in the zone, and I think that's one of the key things for him is to stay aggressive, especially against the Cubs. The Cubs have been working counts like crazy, and that's why he ended up he was over, I think it was close to 110 pitches in that game when he was throwing the no-hitter. And yes, he finally gave up the hit and then gave up a walk, but another part of his issue was the first inning he only threw 5 pitches. And then the Cubs started working the count and working the count and working the count. And there were so many full counts, 3-ball counts, 2-2 counts, 7, 8 pitch at bats. And that is wear on you and get your pitch count up high. So if he wants to be successful, he's got to try to really come out and try to get the batter out early in the at bat to pitch deep into the game. And I think all the Reds pitchers are going to have to do that. All the Reds starters are going to have to do that because you don't want to get to this bullpen any sooner than you have to.
He was a guy that we weren't sure if he was going to be more effective in the pen or in the starting spot. And it looks like at least this early part of the season, now he's facing the Cubs for a second time, so this really will prove how pro ready he is. But what are you expecting out of him starting the series?
Yeah, it's hard to say. The thing that his stuff's better than I thought. I didn't, for some reason, the way it fell, I didn't see him very much last year. He throws a little harder. He's a little guy, but he throws hard. And he's another one. You got to ride it out and see. But they've given him an opportunity, and he's made the most of it. They've always said at the very worst he's a very good bullpen guy, but as you said, he's more valuable as a starter, so just go with it and see until he proves otherwise.
So he has a high floor. We're just not sure how high that ceiling is going to be for this kid.
Yeah. It's
Satin, looking at the 8 games that the Reds have had, or maybe 9 games I guess they've had at home thus far this season, besides that opening day game, they've really had some poor attended games. I mean, this weekend series, they didn't have 40,000 total against the Rockies. I know the Rockies aren't necessarily a draw. They're not the Yankees. They're not the Cardinals. They're not the Cubs. But what's going on with the attendance? Where are your people at?
Well, I get it. People still want to slam this team for being rebuilding or whatever. But the fact is, we're winning right now. We are a winning team right now. So it's true. I'm calling every fan out there to get down there, especially against the Cubs. I mean, I think we turn around in attendance this week with being the Cubs.
Oh, yeah.
But I think we have something special to show everybody out there. And we have it live right here, WCPO. Look at this. We got the Votto-Matic right here.
You got to put it up. Yeah.
You can't hide him here. We're up here. So look at that boy. That is amazing. You get one of these if you go to the game. They actually hand these out when you walk in. So I hope all you know that. What do we got, like 25?
They need to hire you. They need to hire you. You're really you're selling it.
We'll put this over here, Votto.
Speaking of Votto,
I'm ready to be hired. That's fine. I'm always willing. And my phone is right here. If the Reds want to give me a call, we're ready to go.
it's a little off topic here. We're talking about fans, but the main draw, I guess, on this offense is Joey Votto. Kind of struggling to start this year. A lot of strikeouts. He's leading the team in strikeouts. What's going on with him?
I haven't seen him look like this ever, and I'm frankly shocked because he had such a good spring training. He didn't have any competitive at bats yesterday, but he's going to come around. You know, it's again, it's early, but yeah, it's been really strange to see him just not work counts, not foul pitches off and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's been weird. And you know, Mesoraco too. That's why they got to be pretty happy to be 8-7 when you know two of their big bats haven't
right in the middle of that
anything.
lineup aren't doing anything right now. You're a big Votto dude. Are you a little sad right now that he's not getting it done?
Yeah, I don't know if it's like this whole thing of Toronto and Canada, what's going on? Like, if the NBA team, I know he has like tickets there. If he's sad that he can't get up there to see any more of those games, but you're right. I mean, he was on fire, before the season started, and I don't understand it. And I hate this whole thing of like he'll come around. It's just he's Votto-matic. You got to live up to this little figurine right here.
I mean,
so
the man is wearing a cape. He's wearing a cape.
Got a
for goodness
cape on.
sake.
Yeah. Come on.
Canadian Superman. Let's head back to Facebook. Thank you guys for watching out there. We got another question, Mike?
We do. It's from Brian, and he asks...
Brian Price?
No, that would be great if it was Brian Price. It's from someone named Brian Barry, and he asks, who's a player, in our opinions here, that we should watch this year? Who should we keep an eye on?
John, we'll start with you.
Boy, I said Adam Duvall at the beginning of this season. I think, on the pitching side, we were just talking about Finnegan. He's an interesting guy, to be effective, to go up against the Cubs and throw a one-hitter through 7 innings or almost 7 innings. That's pretty impressive. And, he obviously was a very talented guy pitching in the World Series the same year he was drafted. So, they may have something with this guy.
Seddon?
Yeah, I'm still liking Suarez. I think he's going to do an excellent job at third. I think he's showing flashes already there, but I got my eye on him. I see him almost being the MVP of this team.
Mike?
I got to go with what John said first, and that's Duvall. I mean, Duvall's really impressed me, both with the bat. I mean, he's hitting close to 300. He hit a home run yesterday. But also, this is a guy who never played the outfield until the tail end of last year, and he's looked really good at the games that I've been at or watched on TV in terms of his defense. I mean, he made that amazing throw where he threw someone out at the plate. He's had a couple of great diving catches, and he hasn't looked lost, which at the tail end of last year when I saw him play a game, I was like, oh, man, this guy's never going to be a left fielder. And left field's like your weakest position on defense. One more question from Facebook from another Brian.
I didn't get to say my guy.
Sorry. You're out, Keenan.
I'm out. I was going to say, Zach, I'll keep mine brief. Zach Cozart, if he continues to play like he has, he's a great trade chip because he's a plus defender at the most difficult position to defend on the baseball diamond. If he keeps hitting like this, they could really get something back in a trade. But go ahead to the next question. Another Brian.
Another one this is from Brian Cook. He asked, do we have any solid talent, pitching talent in the farm system?
Oh, come on. That's where it all is.
Obviously, Robert Stevenson, Cody Reed, Amir Garrett. There's depth there. I mean, there's some real depth. Nick Travioso, I think, is dealing with some sort of leg injury right now, but there's some guys there. The highest ceiling guys are in the minors. Stevenson, Reed, Traviosa, Garrett.
I'm really intrigued by Garrett, a former basketball player that looks like, once he kind of gets it together, learns how to pitch, he could be, a number 3, number 2 type of guy.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, there's some teams where he might be up here in the bullpen right now because he's on the 40-man roster. He's left-handed. He throws hard. But, I think if they were in contention they expected to be in contention at the end of the year and the bullpen was struggling like this, they'd say, let's bring this guy up. Other teams do it. The Reds have never really done it, but,
I mean, look, that's how the Cardinals brought up Waka, Wainwright. Yeah. I mean, that's just some teams. That's just the way they operate.
Right. Well, we're a closer by committee here. We all have the ability to come in the 9th inning and really shut it down. Satin, I'm gonna go to you first though today, buddy.
Yeah.
Drew Hayes.
Right.
What do you have to say about him?
Well, it's exciting to see a guy get his chance, and all we ever want in life is an opportunity to showcase our talents. And the fact that he's getting this finally is really nice. And I think if we can get out there this week, and hopefully we see him get in there and shine a little bit. So, Drew, this one's for you.
If you only had a beer to toast him. Mike, I'm calling you in. Are you a righty or a lefty?
I'm a righty.
Righty, all right. Mike, I'm calling you in.
All right. So, I look at where we are at this point in the season. And the Reds are 8-7. Yeah, they had a really horrendous road trip, but they've played really well at home. But then if you go and think about, not only are they 8-7, you have a full 5-man starting rotation on the disabled list. The bullpen has been god-awful. And Mesoraco and Joey Votto are both hitting under 200. If you take all those things, when it said all those things are going to happen at the beginning of March, and you said, what do you think the record of this team is going to be? I think most people would say they'd be happy if they had 4 wins. And here they are. They have a winning record right now, despite all those things. So I think that has to give you hope for the future, not only for the rest of the season, but also for years to come. As they're starting to get these guys healthy, I think it's only going to be a matter of time before they bring Reed and Stevenson up. Once Reed kind of gets some time at AAA, gets the cut on his finger dealt with, once Stevenson's clock stops that magic point, and they decide they're going to bring him up, I think this team's going to get better. They're going to have things that they can do to help the bullpen, and hopefully Votto and Mesoraco come back and show the bats that we come to expect. The rotation shapes up and the bullpen shapes up.
John, your ninth inning thoughts?
Well, I think the Cubs are coming to town and starting tonight for a 4-game series. I think they have to play well against the Cubs, the better teams, the Cardinals. They could have very well won the series with the Cardinals, but they were terrible against the Cubs. They were competitive in only 1 game. They have to be able to not, it's very hard to win a 4-game series, but I think if they get a split with the Cubs going onto the road, I think it'll build a lot of confidence. It's going to be tough because they got Arrieta tonight, and he hasn't lost a game since last year. So it's tough, but I think they have to play better against the better teams. The Rockies came in pretty hot, but no one expects the Rockies to do much. So I think that's important, that they play better against the better teams.
John, you sank my battleship. I was pretty much going to go for that point as well, but I'll piggyback off that as well, because the Cubs, they're already 4 games up in this division. So if they are able to eke out a split that at least, obviously the division won't be won or lost this weekend against the Cubs, but if they're able to eke out a split that at least keeps them within range, and they can at least see what happens as this summer kind of approaches really quickly. It's already almost May, guys. Can you believe it?
Yeah, I think it's actually 3 games. They're up 3 games, I think.
Oh, 3 games.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
And I looked at the standings today. The Reds, Cardinals, and Pirates are all 8-7. And I think right now there's only the division leaders in the other divisions have a winning record in the National League, but no one else does, maybe one other team. So, things are pretty even right now. The Cubs have obviously played great, but they're only up 3 games.
Yeah, right now, looking way down the road, the Reds, Cardinals, and Rockies are all tied for first in the wild card.
Oh wow, we're already looking at the wild card stand.
2 of those 3 make it.
I was looking at it second game.
Forever the optimist we are. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up this week's edition of the Fifth Mascot. I'm sorry. And for more episodes and videos, please visit us at WCPO.com/Fifth Mascot. Have a great Thursday. We'll catch up with you guys next week.